Hello, everyone. I'm Airman Torres, and this is Black Belt Bullet Riding with Captain Vitri. Thank you all for tuning in on Facebook, here on Quarantine Universities, San Fox University, Leadership University, and Air Force Riding and Self-Improvement. Thank you all for collaborating with us. Today, we're going to have Captain Mike Vitri presenting our event. So without further ado, I'm going to shut up, and here you have the floor.
All right, thanks. Thanks, man. So Captain Mike Vetri, I got my presentation coming up, so I'll kind of introduce who I am a little bit more. But for anybody out there watching, really appreciate you being here. Special thanks, Airman Torres, Sergeant Johnson, anybody else out there that helped set this up. Really greatly appreciate it. It's probably the largest audience I've had ever teaching this. So definitely looking forward to it. Give me a couple seconds here and I'll start sharing my screen and we'll get going. If there are any issues, just go ahead and type it in the chat and me and Airman Torres will go ahead and figure that out. So thanks. All right, so hope everybody can see it. I'm just going to go ahead and put this in full view. Whoops, go back. All right, so that's me, Captain Mike Vetri. I am the executive officer of the 26th Cyberspace Operations Group. I'm a 17S by trade. I have a little intro slide coming up, so I'll go ahead and talk a little more when that pops up. But what you mostly all care about, is what we're going to go over. We're going to transition kind of from the white belt to the black belt mentality. So what that means is we're going to work on kind of some word choices and all what you can put in your bullets, vanquishing the basic vocabulary, a little cool 25-cent word to get you all excited for it. How to spot the quote unquote good in a bullet or what others think are good, how to fix the bad, and research the ugly. So data cramming. That's going to be kind of a heavy subject. It may seem a little math heavy. You're probably wondering how is math involved in bullets. You'll see. Don't panic. Next, we'll go over some trap doors. You'll see what trap doors are. I'll get to that. And then for you officers out there, kind of a little bit of a glimpse of what the future of OPR bullet riding will look like. By the way, this is kind of scheduled for 2 hours. So if you can't stay the whole time, it's totally okay. This is going to be recorded and we're going to keep it on the Facebook pages. So sit back, relax, enjoy it. So a little bit about me. So, ¿quién soy yo? So I grew up in Maryland. So anybody that's familiar with the Maryland flag, there it is, superimposed on a crab. We're known for our Maryland blue crabs. I was born in Baltimore. I spent a whopping 2 years in the 80s. I was born 88. I know, bad humor. So I got 3 brothers and a sister, Greg, Chris, Tony, and Allison. And my high school, probably the most patriotic named high school in America, Francis Scott Key. Colors are red, white, and blue, and our mascot's the eagle. That's where it all started. It was in high school that I started getting into hurdling and track and field, and you can see all the little events there. Of course, my favorite was the high hurdles. After that, decided maybe I should do this whole college thing. Tried to get into a certain small college in Colorado, but they said, how about you get your SAT reading up a little bit? So they sent me to this cool little college in New Mexico called New Mexico Military Institute. It's in Roswell, better known as where, the alien crash was, or supposedly was. And then after that, I got sentenced to prison for 4 years. I went to the Air Force Academy for 4 years, graduated, class of 2011. Our exemplar is Robin Olds. Really cool, really amazing officer, and kind of pushed the envelope a bit, which is hilarious. If you haven't heard of him. So after I did the whole college experience, went into cyberspace operations. Really fun. I'm a 17S by trade. I think I might have said that already. There I went to, right after that, I went to Edwards Air Force Base. So if there's any Edwardians out there, my heart's out to you because I know it's not being in the middle of the desert, it's not the most fun place to be. All right, so while at Edwards, you're probably wondering, how did I title this whole presentation Black Belt Bullet Riding? Well, I am a Black Belt instructor by trade. Well, a little thing aside I do in Krav Maga. It took me about 4 years to become, 4.5 years to become a Black Belt, and a fun 16-hour test. After the communication squadron, there was a hot jobs email that came out. Says, hey, we're looking for Air Force ROTC instructors. We have 2 colleges open. NMSU and SDSU. And I saw SDSU and I almost jumped right on it. Like, oh, cool, San Diego State. Was actually South Dakota State. So I opted for New Mexico State. While at New Mexico State, I've loved it. I'm going to kind of highlight this a bit in a little shape because to this day, it is still my favorite assignment I've ever had. So any officers out there that are between second lieutenant to maybe first or second year captain, I highly recommend doing if you want to do career broadening, try Air Force ROTC instructor, because I mean, if there's a change you want to see in the Air Force, there's nothing like, you know, working with the future Air Force leaders and influencing that change and morphing the change into what you want to see in the Air Force. So while at New Mexico State, I met the love of my life. No, it was not a cadet. She was not a student. But anyway, so while after that, I went to, you want to talk about jumping, you know, different jobs for a while. Comm Squadron, Air Force ROTC, and then the 33rd Network Warfare Squadron, DCO. So while there, I got did a lot of cool stuff in cyber investigations. There's 2 rings. We finally got married, my wife and I, Silvana. And then around August of last year in 2019, I got the opportunity to now serve as the exec to the 26th Cyber Operations Group, which is the parent organization, if you will, for the 33rd. I've done a lot of cool things there, including, you know, put this together and teach bullet writing. But one of the coolest things that happened, I got to take a 3-week leave for a really cool event that happened in early October. And it was this. My little daughter, Alessandra, came out into the world. And on October 3rd, she's now almost 8 months. And she is by far, you know, tied with my wife, of course, the coolest thing that's ever happened to me. My career, my life, all that. So there's our little girl. She's snoozing right now. By the way, speaking of her, disclaimer, if you hear a little crying in the background, she might be getting up from her nap and teleworking, but don't worry about it. She's just saying hello. Okay. Anyways, so we're going to go ahead and get back on track here. So first thing I kind of teach in a bullet writing class is kind of, you know, getting rid of the basic vocabulary a little bit. So for anybody that's on the page Air Force Writing and Self-Improvement, you've probably seen this many times. If you're not on it, I suggest kind of liking it and joining, because it's a really cool page. We had 600 folks in November. Now we got 6,600. But anyway, I digress. So writing any type of evaluation or 1206 or anything like that, you know, your big words are what's going to get you the attention. You know, all too often we just use the same, you know, redundant increased or decreased, or, you know, you name it. And you'll see what I kind of came up with for that in a second here. So long story short, you're competing for something. You're competing for a promotion. You're competing for an award. You know, you're trying to advance your career a little bit. So every little detail matters in those awards and 1206s, including the catchy words. So you think it might sound crazy, but you know, I've seen words and I've used words like, I promise, I have used Vanquish before in a winning package, done skyrocketing, catapulted, surged, amplified, electrified. You need like those words that are really going to get you going. So, and you know, that might make the difference and kind of change the psyche a bit of the guys that are on the awards board, guys and girls that are on the awards board looking at this. If it's a close one, you know, you might keep their attention and steal it with these big words, these 25-cent words. It's also, you know, we're all gonna leave the Air Force one day. You know, we're not gonna be in it forever. It may feel like it, but we're not. So it's never really too early to practice for what's on the outside and, you know, getting ready to, you know, amplify your vocabulary a bit in those resumes. So Exhibit A. I came up with this at Edwards. This was actually the first product of a massive, approximately 50-page bullet writing guide that I have right now. It all started one day when I was a second lieutenant, and I noticed on a lot of murder boards that we spend a disgusting amount of time trying to wordsmith and find just the right word or synonym that's going to fill the space. So just one day I started making this Word document because second lieutenants are extremely busy and don't have any extra time on their hands. No, they do. So I made this list of like kind of similar words so I can hurry up and, be like, okay, well, if decrease is too big, I can use like sunk or plummeted or, something like that. So I don't have to like look up the stars.com, kind of mess with it, because that's not in word order, or length order, it's alphabetical. So what this is, the world word helping index referenced by length, and I'll show you a screenshot in the next slide. It's pretty much a document that gives many common words that we use in bullet writing. So I already said increase and decrease, led, presided, earned, it's like earned a medal or earned CG of the quarter, secured, stuff like that. If you're SF or cyber, it could go on. And under that main word, it shows synonyms in length order, so that when you're writing your 1206 or your eval, you can find a synonym real quick. So it's a lot easier shown than explained. So I'm just going to flip to the next slide. Now, I don't expect you to read this. I know it's in small font. This is copy and pasted from my Word document, and that's okay. So you can see here, it starts up here with reduced, and in length order, you just get synonyms from cut to stifled to tackled, crushed, shredded down here, bulldozed. And it's got many different forms of common words that we use on evals. Insured. Insured, we got plenty of cooler words. Evoked, yielded, fostered, stuff like that. Again, this is a screenshot. It's a lot easier kind of shown in this example. As to Shane Bolt in the background, I'll show you why he's kind of relevant to this. But for example, other words we can use than reduced. We got sunk, torched, pummeled, eviscerated, if you really want to go like dark a little bit. Increased, grew, surged, intensified, skyrocketed, upgraded. What about led, bossed, helmed, architected, orchestrated? Is kind of getting a little bit common lately. Secured, wrangled, locked down, rigidified, walled, guarded. Okay, so if you fix something, you patched it, stabilized, revitalized, maybe counteracted whatever was threatening it. That we already talked about insured. So we always talk about, there's critical write-ups, or critical to, the unit's highly effective rating, or critical to, the mission. What else can kind of describe critical? There's focal, pivotal, imperative, integral. You can call it a lifeline. My background is cyber. We always talk about vulnerabilities and weaknesses. So there's gaps, faults, fissures, weaknesses, shortcomings. And everybody can relate to praise. And this is where little Usain Bolt, well, not little, I think he's like 6'4" or something, in the background comes in. He gets praised a lot. What are some other ways of saying you got praised by the wing commander, or praised by the chief of staff of the Air Force, or praised by the ACC commander? You're acclaimed, you're gaskinated. That's a little bit of a high level SAT word. Commended, vaunted, all kinds of options to kind of evoke that strong feeling, or that powerful phrase of just being praised. I'm not a big fan of lauded, only because you see it everywhere, and so I didn't even bother putting that on there. But you can use lauded. All right, so that's the world. So now we're going to get into, don't worry about the text, that's a background image. Let me fill that up real fast. Now we're going to get into kind of what people will say, oh, this is good with this bullet. Well, is it really good? Hence this little sub theme of the good, the bad, and the ugly. So anyways, bullet writing black belts are not just good, they should be experts at their craft. And sometimes just being good is detrimental, because good kind of synonymizes with average. And average is not going to win those awards, not going to get you the attention for a promotion. So this is more like spotting the average. So examples of good. So I have a couple different, there are many bullets out there that I've kind of labeled, if you will. So we have this thing called, if you see a bullet that's got way too much information or stuff like that, I call it a TCP dump. If you're cyber, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not cyber, basically, if you run a TCP dump command, it gives you an absurd amount of information about network traffic or whatever you're looking at. Long story short, TCP dump is a nickname given to a bullet that is sharing way too much information that's unnecessary. So, any of you ever saw the show Zorro or know who Zorro is? He's a guy that likes to slice the Z in the intro screen of his TV show, and he's got this really sharp sword. What does the sword do? It cuts, it slashes, it chops everything. So the rival of Zorro, if you will, would probably have a bullet that has a lot of symbols and commas and slashes, and you're obviously forcefully trying to consolidate the bullet just so you can fit it in a space that's almost pretty much difficult to read. And I'm going to go over a couple examples in a sec. This other thing, it's called a library, where you just slap titles everywhere. So there's a new thing coming out in the Air Force, kind of new, where people are kind of, you don't want to use titles that only really your career field recognizes or only your squadron recognizes. I'll show you in a second. So as cyber, anybody outside the cyber world probably doesn't know what Exercise Black Demon is, or outside of my squadron, the 33rd, you probably wouldn't know what Operation Quantum was. But we know. So it sounds cool to us, but outside, like, I don't know, what's the meaning of that? So if you're going to slap titles on it, should be something everybody recognizes, like Red Flag, Exercise Red Flag. There's another bullet, it's called, I nickname it the Clash. And that's when you look at a bullet and it's pretty much saying, so background about the Clash. The Clash was a band, I think in the 70s or 80s, that sung the famous song, I Fought the Law and the Law Won. This is like, well, you try to do this and you earned it. And I'll show you an example in the next slide where it was a real bullet where someone says, fought for like 120 MPA days and won it. Like they wanted MPA days from the reserves and they won. It's like, couldn't you just say you earned the 120 MPA days? So, because in a bullet, we just care about the end result in general. So this name, the mainstream media, putting in stats that don't matter. So there are two ways that you can fall into the mainstream media trap. One is the famous 0 or 100. So 0 or 100, generally, those numbers point to kind of compliance stats. So, if you put in a bullet, 100% compliant on visit, well, that's great. You met the standard. And usually when we write bullets, we don't want to focus on just meeting the standard. We want to kind of like exceed it or show that we went above and beyond. The goal of a bullet writer isn't trying to say they did an average job, right? Or, for any 3 Deltas, 1 Bravos, 17s out there, when you say, 0% network downtime or 0 network downtime, it's like, okay, cool, that's the expectation. Or if you say, earned an effective rating on an inspection. Well, okay, again, that's good job. That's a standard. Another thing when it comes to stats that don't matter is kind of like stats you really can't relate to or tell if they're meaningful or not. And what I mean by that is if, you put in a statistic that says, wrote 3 policies for the squadron. Or, if you're in security forces, arrested 3 suspects in the quarter. It's like, okay, security forces, is that a lot? Is that a little for a quarter? Like, I don't know. How can I relate it to anything? It's like, you're kind of just putting in numbers just for the sake of putting in numbers. They should have meaning. And that'll kind of be emphasized later here in a sec. Cheerleader, we've kind of all seen that, maybe. That's when you have unnecessary phrases in there, like phenomenal CGO, relentlessly did this, flawlessly. It's way too many adjectives and adverbs. Just get to the point, right? So that's the cheerleader bullet. And then we have what's called the history professor, where you're just using the bullet to tell this long story. Again, just get to the point. Tell us the end result. So again, showing kind of emphasizes the material a lot more than just trying to explain it. So the next slides, I'm going to show you an example of all of these. I like to be fun with my animation. By the way, if anybody knows what this is out there, I know I can't hear your input, but that would be the library to the little small college in Colorado I went to for 4 years. All right, so an example of TCP dump. By the way, like I said, my background cyber, so some of these may sound a little cyber-ish. Bear with me. So, in plain English, launched a big data project. You tracked 85 terabytes of IP traffic configured, 29 servers. I probably lost a lot of y'all's attention by now. Built 38 routers with NAT, and then provided insight to network patterns. Way too much info. Anybody outside of cyber or comm or unfamiliar with it probably doesn't know if TB IP traffic is a lot. You may not know what RTR is if it's not a commish related eval. NAT, network address translation. It's like, okay, way too much info, diluted. So that's an example of TCP dump. Oh, here we go. So yeah, points it out everywhere. All the symptoms of TCP. Zorro's rival. All right, so for SF guys out there, managed base security forces operations, deployed 81, I made all this up by the way, deployed 81 K9s, 78 arrests, authorized 56 tickets, 2 high-value targets apprehended, protected the second largest Air Force base. By the way, random, that would be Edwards Air Force Base. So how do we know this is Zorro's rival? Zorro's rival is when things get cut, shortened, slashes, you name it. So we have, whoops, I'm sorry. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 instances of either an abbreviation or not abbreviation, the slash D, the, you name it. So the slashes, the apostrophes, way too condensed. So you have to kind of redo that one. The library, here we go. Led Operation Quantum, you supported 3 match comms in search of a high-value target, detected 87 terabytes critical data, 5 lessons applied to exercise Black Demon. So the library bullet, this is where you slap titles on there, but nobody knows what that is. So Operation Quantum, exercise Black Demon, nobody knows outside of probably the 688 Cyber Wing, maybe 16th Air Force, what those are. And the clash. Remember, this is I fought the law and the law won, so bolstered squadron personnel strength. Fought for 120 MPA days and won. So I'll give this brief a couple times. So I kind of know what's coming before I get to the slide. Ignited DevOps flight, implemented in 3 months. Anyway, so there's your big symptom of that bullet. You're saying you did something and then it came to fruition. Bullets, we just care what came to fruition. And in the mainstream media. Provided relentless network operations, maintained 100% uptime. There it is. 0 mission degradation. Good job. That's the expectation. You earned an effective in your cyber inspection. Oh, awesome. Okay. Thank you for telling me that y'all did average. Cool. Now, one way you can kind of, a little sidetrack, one way you can kind of counter the whole, if you really, really want to put effective in a bullet, sometimes it's useful to say if you used to be ineffective, maybe your flight or your program went from ineffective to effective and you got it fixed in 2 months. That's pretty cool. But just saying it's effective, we don't know that background info, so you're just gloating about how you're average. So, and you'll see when we talk about data levels, how you can manipulate that. All right, so history. You can probably imagine the history professor bullet's going to be on here. All right, cheerleader bullet. Phenomenal Phenomenal personnelist, relentlessly fixed 130 admin errors, flawlessly managed $85 million budget. Okay, all those long adverbs and adjectives, that's wasting space. Flight had 0 UEI discrepancies. I mean, if you would cut those adjectives and adverbs out, you might have bought yourself some room to kind of describe like how fast you get it down to it, or how many did you used to have, or something like that. History professor. Acquired an all-new training platform. You assessed 6 options. You liaised with the contractor squadron. You committed $100,000. You upgraded 300 members' knowledge, skills, and abilities. So usually, if this was a 2-way interactive session, I'd ask the students, is anybody familiar with what I just described? When you assess options, you talk with the contractor squadron, and you commit $100,000. That is literally the exact Form 9 process. It's when you have to fill out that sole source contract, if you have to have at least 3 options and talk with, you're just saying what is you have to do anyway. So, rather than tell me the Form 9 process, maybe now that you upgraded those members' knowledge, skills, and abilities, what's the impact? How has it, played a part in what their normal, has, errors been reduced? Have operations gone up? Readiness gone up? Instead of telling me what we all do if we need to spend more than 25,000 or liaise with the contractor squad. Okay. So normally, again, in a two-way venue, two-way student to instructor venue, I kind of say like, oh, you know, what kind of bullet do you think this is? So I can't really get that input. So I'm just going to kind of blow through this real quick. Lead cyber footprint production, cut expired hardware, blah, blah, blah. It's another TCP dump. Top level analyst, year-long effort ended ISIS in Iraq. Relentless drive yielded peace for the first time in 6 years. Cheerleader, while that's very impressive that you ended ISIS in Iraq and the first time you've had peace in 6 years, you could have said a lot more without all this other fluff going on. All right, so fixing the bag. If anybody out there knows what this place is, that's pretty cool. So one of the things, you know, other than writing bullets are going to be, you know, when you make high enough rank, you're going to be looking over bullets, you know. So when you get an eval or a 1206 in front of you, kind of think about, all right, what should be my mental checklist to go through it and to do this. So one of the things I should have said in the beginning is that I do not claim personally to be like the end all be all master in bullet writing at all. I make mistakes too. I'm a 2-time exec, 1 time officially, the other time unofficial because I had to go get up there and help out an exec that was on for medical reasons. So I was an exec for a group commander way back at Edwards for about 3 to 4 months. So I've seen a bunch of OPRs and EPRs and stuff like that, and it's like, you know what? What's finally going to work when I look over these evals? And so I call this a startup routine. Again, that's my cyber coming out again. So there's 2 ways to look at this. First is, you know, the bird's eye view and then tree level. So when you first look at a 1206 or an eval and awards package, take the bird's eye view, look at everything from, you know, 1,000 feet above, and then dig into the bullets. Because sometimes it's hard to miss things when you're getting right into bullets and you realize like, oh shoot, like I didn't realize these 2 things are spelled differently. Some wings will say, you know what, if you're going to spell the word teen as TM or abbreviated as TM, it better be the same throughout the entire eval, the entire, you know, 1206. Other wings are more lenient on that. So this is why, you know, bird's eye view helps, because you can kind of get a quick glance. It's like, okay, did they type out MEMBER as member up here in bullet 1, and then it just went to MBR in bullet 4? Like, that's a good thing to catch. So when you're doing the bird's eye view, I call this the 5 S's. Spelling inconsistencies, kind of just went over that, right? Similar metrics. So if you start seeing a lot of the same number, or at least a couple times of the same number, personally, I like to print things out so I can write on it and highlight instead of, you know, it's a lot harder to in PDF, you got to click everywhere. I'm a little bit old school. So I like to print it out, highlight, like, whoa, there's 75 million there. That's something I got to check out later. Or, you know, there's 100 there and 100 there. Are we going to be talking about compliance twice? So look for similar metrics. Statements of overexcitement. So those fluffy statements, how many times is there an exclamation mark, a long lead-off phrase that you got in the beginning. So check that out as well. Excessive white space. Everybody's got their different style and opinion on how much white space is too much white space in the end. People may agree, people may disagree. I think personally, if there's more than 3 lowercase x's, that's too much. You should probably try to put in a little bit more. If you can't, that's life. By the way, random fact about the AFI, a bullet on an eval can be 2 lines in length. It's just extremely highly discouraged. And then the final S is the right side sweep. So the right side sweep is kind of doing, you know, you're looking at pretty much when we talk about action, result, impact, we're looking at result and impact, you know, because normally the actions are going to be pretty unique from one another, but sometimes you get wrapped up that generally kind of can start looking the same, or there's spelling errors. You just want to do a general sweep. Are there similar metrics? Are there similar words? Do we talk about inspection and then UEI down here? You can kind of start diagnosing things are too similar. And the last thing with this bird's eye view you want to do is kind of go through real quick with each bullet and see, like, all right, is this even related to itself? And I'll go in that in the next part here. So that's tree level. So tree level, when you finally start digging into the bullets, I have a couple more symptoms, if you will, of bad bullets. So it's not just, what you saw before. I have some other nicknames as well. So other than Zorro's Rival and TCP Dump, there's a job description. So as you're going through this, ask yourself, wait, isn't that what you do anyway? So when you're looking at an eval, and especially OPRs, the top 4 have, you lead this many people, you configure this, whatever it may be, and you start typing that out in your comments. It's like that's your job description. That looks exactly like what you're supposed to do anyway. What's different? So that should kind of be a red flag a bit. A wait, what kind of bullet? So TCP dump could be too technical. In short, it's difficult to read. So random thing about me, I studied chemistry in college. So along the way, I took this chemical weapons class, and we learned that RDX is an extremely explosive chemical, more so than TNT. So if you see an RDX bullet as you're reading along, that's one of those things where it'll start off kind of normal, and then suddenly the impact is like you've found the cure to cancer across the world or some crazy crap like that. So an example I saw, and I'll never forget, when I was my first cyber related assignment, there was a bullet that said, long story short, this guy went and fixed 3 servers for the Global Hawk Squadron on base. It was just 3 servers, and it was done in like a day. The impact was that he preserved the $975 billion ISR mission. Like, oh my goodness, if you didn't fix those 3 servers, the entire Air Force ISR mission would have collapsed. Like, come on. So that's an example of an RDX bullet. We also have the inverse. Before I show you the inverse, I want to apologize to anybody out there that's an Atlanta Falcons fan, because this is nicknamed the Atlanta Falcons bullet. This is when a bullet starts off really strong and then ends flat. So an example of for some reason, I'm in my own home, but I can sense the hatred from Atlanta Falcons fans already. But the background is a couple Super Bowls ago, Super Bowl, I forget the number, but it happened in February of 17. Atlanta Falcons were playing my most hated team, the New England Patriots. They were up 28-3 about late in the 3rd quarter. And then they collapsed, and the Patriots came back and won. Like, they blew a 25-point lead. You got to be kidding me. So this is when you have a bullet that starts off extremely strong and then falls flat at the end. A general rule of thumb that I recommend is that when you're putting together your action and result, your impact, if I can speak in math terms, should be greater than or equal to your action and result. So if you're talking about squadron level stuff you did, and then you get to the impact, maybe try to keep it at squadron, or how did you impact the group, or even the wing. You don't want to start off as like, built the KC-46 circuit, DOD number 3 priority, blah, blah, blah. Oh, secured the base network. It's like, you were just talking about DOD level stuff, and then you drop back down to base stuff. So, and you'll see an example of that in a second. And then forced numbers. This is kind of similar to mainstream media. You're putting in numbers in there just for the sake of doing it because someone thinks you need numbers and bullets, which it is a good thing to have. But you can kind of convey data in words if you can in numbers. And we'll see that in a little while. So generally we would do this exercise and see like, hey, can you diagnose these bullets? But this is a kind of a one-way talk here. So I'm just going to kind of like go through this. Don't have to spend too much time on it. But if you look at this first bullet, you headed up CCRI, Command Cyber Readiness Inspection Preparation Efforts. You authored 2 policies. You sealed up 5,000 vulnerabilities. You reported 3 findings. But it resulted in #1 CCRI score in the Air Force to date. So that actually happened in Edwards when I was in the comm squadron. That was pretty cool. But long story short, you have your prep efforts led to the #1 inspection score in the Air Force to date. So there was probably a ton of preparation efforts that went into this to get this kind of a historical marker. And you're just going to talk about how you authored 2 policies and reported 3 findings. Okay, you sealed up 5,000 vulnerabilities. That, from a cyber perspective, that's not much. Just take my word on it. Next, we have this, the RDX bullet. So remember, this is where it starts off and goes crazy. So you installed 2 law enforcement servers at the base visitor control center. You enable communication between 200 security forces and Lancaster Police Department. Just by putting in 2 servers, now you guarded $140 billion base assets. Like 2 servers caused that? Like, I don't think so. Then we have the inverse. I kind of already talked about it. Yet DoD number 3 priority is, it happened. You launched a new AMC mission, but now you have additional security of the base network. Like DoD level, MAGCOM level, and we're talking about the base here. Try to keep it equal if you can, or higher when you get to the impact. So one thing I forgot to mention, we would pretend all these bullets are kind of on the same eval or 1206. So you kind of notice here, it says in red, the impact is similar to number 1. So when we did our right side sweep, we would notice top inspection rating all time. Number 1 CCRI score in Air Force to date. So generally we want our bullets to be unique and fairly distinguished from one another. And this is kind of speaking the same thing. Yeah. So anyway, if you're not in cyber, this 5th one's going to confuse the heck out of you. You helm the StansX restoration, you stop the DDoS attack within 2 hours, recovered 945 terabytes of .pst data, upgraded RTR ACLs, router access control list for 1,000 devices. Very few people outside of comm know what that is. So that's way too technical. That's why one of those, wait, what? And then finally, impact is similar as number 2. Guarded 140 bill base assets, base $140 billion assets secure. So again, right side sweep, we should pick that up. Similar metrics. So with that, we're going to go ahead and move on. All right. So this is where things are going to get a little bit heavy. My plan is once we get to 1500 Central Time or top of the hour, wherever you're at, we'll take a break. It may get a little bit math intense. Don't panic. There's a rhyme and a reason behind it. I've already done the math for you. So we're going to go ahead and press. So we talked about fixing the good, or spotting the good, fixing the bad, and research the ugly. This whole good, bad, and ugly theme. So what we're going to talk about here is with numbers, you don't want to be boring with them. I know I just read off the slide. I'm sorry. It's like a mortal sin in the instructor world. Long story short, you don't want to just throw numbers out there that have no meaning, or they're just raw and unprocessed. For example, a lot of times I'll see when squadrons send stuff up to me at the exec level, I always see $543 million weapon system or $14.2 billion AFNet. So nobody knows, is 14.2 billion a lot? Well, it's not so much. It only costs about like 4 or 5 B-2 bombers. Is that a lot? I don't know. 543 million. Well, I know one base network only costs 75 mil, so weapon system not that much pricier, maybe 6 or 7 of them. So you got to give context behind your data. Oh yeah, sorry. And before I go that second one, don't use numbers that your squadron always has. I've seen 33rd. I love you guys. I really do. That was my unit before this. I love them. I have a blast there when I do ops. But we see 14.2 billion a lot come out of there. And I know the intent is, to show, wow, look at this big, massive cost figure. I saved that much money. But when your squadron uses it over and over again, it may seem unique to the group or maybe to the wing, like, wow, that's a lot, but your squadron knows better. Your squadron knows, yeah, we all know it's 14.2 billion. So, and on a little side tangent, I actually will kind of, offer that when you go for awards, your quarterly awards, I would kind of argue that the hardest level to win at, if you have a decent amount of competition, at least 5 or 6 in your category, is your squadron. Because especially if there's a lot, everybody knows what you do. Everybody's doing, very similar work in the squadron. So it's really hard to distinguish yourself at the squadron level. So that's why it's really valuable to come up with these new numbers that are impressive that your fellow squadron mates haven't seen before. Because once you get to the group, for example, my group, the 26 COG, there are only 3 squadrons there. So if you can get it out, you can win out of your squadron. Now you're only competing against 3. 33% chance to be a group winner and get up to the wing. So yeah, be different and unique. You're competing. Like if you want to win, you have to be different. You've got to do something that other people haven't done. There's a famous quote out there. It says, "To have what we never had, we must do what we've never done." And that goes the same with your data in here. When you're putting these facts and figures in your evals and your award packages, you got to come up with something different. You can't realistically expect all 5, 7, however many bullets your wing requires to be perfectly written or to be perfectly unique. But a piece of data that's new, it can grab attention just as much as one of those fancy SAT words or better. So just something to think about. So put in those stats that matter. Here's something that's going to blow your mind. This is something I came up with myself. People tend to like it. If you don't, that's okay. I call it the C6 model, or the 6 C's to statistical reporting. So when you put a statistic or a piece of data in an eval or an OPR, the higher level you get, whether it's 1 through 6, the more impressive it is. And I'll show you. Next slide. Okay. So here we go. The next one's the model. I'm sorry. So I already said you want to avoid those boring level 1 stats, the raw data that has no math is behind it. It's just a price tag. Or 10,000 personnel. Like security forces at Edwards love to say that they defended 10,000 personnel in Edwards, which they do. That's a fact. But when you see that over and over and over again, it's like the value of it drops because everyone has that as a bullet. So you want to aim for stats that show meaning and context, averages, comparison, maybe comparative language, something that's the first or the new or rare. Causal mechanisms forecasting, I'll tell you what I mean by that on the next slide. Here it is. If it's small, wherever you're looking, I apologize. I'm going to go over this here in a second. We have 6 levels. This is a blast. I love teaching this. So level 1 is the level that a lot of us tend to, including me sometimes, tend to report at. It's that raw, unprocessed, no math behind it data, that there's no reference. It's just associated with a single unit of measurement. So like I said, the $14.2 billion AFNet, the 4-member team, if someone did a 7-hour mission, it's like, well, is that a lot or a little? Because, U2 and B2 missions can go on a long time. But, a mission in, on the ACD weapon system, their shifts are 8 hours. So, think about other contexts before you put those numbers on there. So that's level 1. Level 2 is called comparative. Comparative is when you have finally expressed this data as a reference to something else. So you've given it meaning. You show by comparison to something else that it is powerful, it is worthwhile, there is work behind it. Again, examples are better than me just trying to explain it. So it's like your reporting time dropped from 3 hours to 1. Number 2 of 30 NCOs, like Strat, vulnerabilities are down 5,000. Or you're the only Arabic linguist in the squadron. Hey, I don't know, that's pretty awesome. So, that is comparative. You're the one of however many are in your squadron. So notice how words can kind of evoke data as well. It's not just numbers, but words. Later on, you'll see there's rare that you can use, stuff like that. Let's see, compiled. Compiled is when you have finally done some kind of math behind it to come up with a new number. So examples of that have been like maybe your squadron PT test average is 95, your UFPM, and your average is 95. Operator readiness is at 98%. Like that's pretty impressive. Or your reporting time dropped 66%. It used to take forever to get the report in. At 3 hours, now notice, level 2, reporting time dropped from 3 hours to 1. Level 3, reporting time dropped 66%. That sounds pretty cool. That sounds a lot cooler, 3 hours to 1. So that's level 3. Level 4 is called combined. Now, try to wrap your head around this. This is when you take two level 3 stats, like those averages or some kind of mathematical computations that you compiled, and you compare them in a level 2 manner. Again, easy way to explain this. Reporting time dropped 66% in 2 months, or maybe reporting time dropped from 80% to 60% in 2 months. You see how it went from a previous condition to a new condition. That's a really cool way to evoke it. Server availability up 54%, or maybe server availability up from, I don't know, 27% to 54% in 2 months. So you've given it a kind of a level 2 feel by time or uniqueness, and it's the only of something or the new of something. So that's combined. Combined is level 4 stat is normally the hardest to kind of grasp. In general, you've taken two numbers that you had to crunch that is not readily available, and you compare them from a previous condition to a new condition. That's the essence of it. Level 5. This is where I kind of pause and say, be very careful if you're going to do a level 5 stat. In many bullet writing contexts, raters and awards boards, they want everything in past tense. Level 5, I call it calling the future, or in parentheses, forecasting. I say calling the future because I needed the letter C, so it fits the C6 cute little acronym, but you can call it forecasting. This is where in some way you have been tracking metrics in some way, shape, or form. I don't know how. Maybe the squadron PT average is going up since you've been the UFPM and now you're making this intense workout program. Or maybe since you've, from a cyber perspective, oh, we have this new tool. Now it doesn't take us this amount of time to investigate and see if it's something bad or not. Now it only takes this amount of time. But you start projecting, and now you can say in 2 months, it's going to be here. Now you're probably wondering, okay, why would I say in 2 months it'll be, it'll be here? Why would anybody care? So that's where I say be careful, because if you're going to give a level 5 stat, you got to give it some kind of significance. Why it matters that in 2 months you'll be the new reporting time will be only 30 minutes as opposed to a half hour. Well, maybe as you can see here on the bottom bullet of level 5, fastest in unit history. That's the fastest it's ever been. Or maybe the fastest it's been in 3 years. Or maybe the readiness is the strongest it's ever been, or the highest it's ever been in X amount of years. Now you've given it context. So you're saying pretty much, given this trajectory, we are going to, this is where we're going to be. And it's going to be the best it's ever been. That's worthwhile putting on there. You've primed your unit for highest operator readiness or highest operator population ever. That's a level 5 stat. And now here we go, causal. Causal data is pretty much, you have invented this new mechanism or this new process or this new, you brought in this new tool that will absolutely guarantee that things are going to be better permanently. So the difference is level 5 is that it will happen, but you can't really guarantee it. It's just trending that way. But level 6 is like, I've already done it, it's verified, and boom, we're way better than we were. So this example is kind of in technical terms. I'm going to speak English for you. Pretty much, you developed a firewall configuration to deny 85% of advanced persistent threat attacks versus 62%. So now you're denying 85 instead of 62. And now it's an all-time high in security. That's an example of level 6 stat. That is freaking awesome. So I'm just going to go ahead and assume everybody's got it. We got Q&A at the end. Examples are coming up. So here's everything summarized. Here we go. Level 1, characteristic. You kind of want to avoid it if you can. Is that a lot, a little, normal? I don't know. Level 2, comparative. You show progression from a previous state or condition to a new one. Compiled, missions are up 20%, highest in 3 years. Combined, 2 and 3 are in one stat. Test averages up from, there you go, 60% to 85%. 5, calling the future. Squadron projected to reach all-time high average in 2 months. It's a forecast for a massive historic milestone only. So again, use with caution. And 6, a new mechanism that will permanently make things better. All right. So some of you and anybody out there, I highly, highly send my sincerest gratitude to you if you participated in that bullet writing survey that I sent out back in April. It was pretty much 10 questions on, what do you think is, there's some demographic questions like what's your rank and stuff and how many awards boards have you been on? And then it pretty much asks you, what do you think are the best written bullets and some other things as well. So this pretty much a month ago, that's what it was. But I want to kind of emphasize that this all works. And we're going to focus on what the E9s, the O5s, and the O6s responded with. It's some pretty interesting stuff. So there were about 1,200 people that took the survey. By the way, if anybody cares to know, technical sergeants out there, you were the most prominent respondents in that survey. I think you made up about 22% of the entire population. We had anything from senior airmen all the way up to colonels. And you technical sergeants just dominated the answers. Master sergeants, you were a very close second. Captains, fellow captains, I'm disappointed. I'm just kidding. All right. Anyway, so we had some pretty interesting results. So there was one question I'm going to focus on. By the way, the total amount of people that were chiefs, lieutenant colonels, or colonels were 47. And they've served on at least 11 awards boards or promotion boards. So I wanted experience in the Air Force, so E9, O5, O6, and experience in bullet writing. So, if they don't have any experience, and it's like, well, so I have some credibility with their experience in bullet writing here. So that made up 47%. All right, so here are the four, some of you remember this, here are the 4 bullets that were presented in that question. And I pretty much asked, which one do you think is the best written? That's it. So we got, they all say the same thing. They're all talking about the same event. Crush an angel, MAGCOM inspection, authored 3 policies, rectified 18 previous discrepancies, merited a rare, highly effective rating, revived a 2-year broken program, 3 new policies, fixed 90% of discrepancies identified 2 months ago, highly effective rating the first time in 3 years. Or you could say you fixed a broken program, wrote 3 policies, discrepancies are down 95% to 5% in 2 months. New tactics, techniques, and procedures guarantee 90% compliance for the future. Or dominated a MAGCOM inspection, invoked 3 policies, new mechanism erased 90% of its discrepancies, highly effective rating, first time in 3 years. So one thing I like to do with bullets is, let's look at the different levels that we see throughout the bullet and then add them all up. Let's see what our total number of bullets or total number of level points are. So we have a level 2 data in there, level 3 and a level 1. 2 plus 3 is 1. That bullet gets a level score of 6. So that makes sense. So the first one, here's all the pieces of data. I know that runs over. That's all 1. 18 previous discrepancies. Rare. Rare is a piece of data. I'll show you. Annual. Annual matters. Annual is a level 2 stat. It kind of compares how often this happens. 3 policies. That's level 1. We all know 3 is a lot. A little is level 1. I even put it in red. 18 previous discrepancies. Still level 1. You fix 18 discrepancies. Rare. Rare is level 2. It's comparative. Now it gives you some context. This isn't just any rating. This is hard to get. All right. 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2. That equals 6. 6 divided by 4, because there's 4 instances of data, is 1.5. So out of all these lieutenant colonels, and chiefs, 23% said this is the best rated bullet. Let's go to the next one. Revived a 2-year broken program, 3 new policies. You fixed 90% discrepancies that were ID'd 2 months ago. You got a highly effective rating, first in 3 years. 2-year broken program, 2. Right? You gave some context how long this has been busted. 3 new policies. New, rare, first ever, all that, all indicate a comparative stat. 90% of discrepancies identified 2 months ago. That's level 4. That's level 3 or level 2 stats combined in level 2 manner. And then we have highly effective rating first in 3 years. That's level 3. So first can kind of indicate level 2, but when you give it context and assign it in 3 years, you've done some math and computing, not only to realize it the first time, but in how long. That's what kind of constitutes as level 3. So we got a 2, a 2, a 4, and a 3. That equals 11. 11 divided by 4 instances of data is 3.8. 38%. Told you math worked. Like the math checks out with these upper levels of leadership. 38% and the highest amount thought this was the best written bullet. Now we'll go on the next one. 3 policies, discrepancies down 95 to 5% in 2 months. New TTPs guarantee 90% compliance. We got a level 1. We actually have a level 4. They're down from 95 to 5%. So we got 2 pieces of level 3 data, 95%, 5%, and compared with in a time frame, 2 months. That's what makes it level 4. It guarantees 95% compliance in the future. So we got a level 1, a level 4, and a level 6, which is also a total of 11. The average is 3.3, but only 23% of them said this is the best written one. So right away, and I'll explain in the next slide, you're probably wondering, this got a score of 11, this got 6, but they're tied. The next one's going to blow your mind. All right, so we got 3 policies, right? Dominated match common inspection. We invoked 3 policies. New mechanism erased 90% of discrepancies. Highly effective rating first in 3 years. Nice. So we got level 1, 3 policies. New mechanism erased 90% discrepancies. That actually is level 4 because we got new mechanism and it's 90%. So the 90% is the level 3. The new mechanism is kind of like a level 2 stat, but that level 2 stat is related to the level 3. That's what makes it that compiled sense up until a level 4. And I know you're probably thinking, wait a minute, you just said if you make a new mechanism, then it should be level 6. It should be, you know, that way high level. While that's true, all it did is erase 90% discrepancies. It never indicated anywhere that it's guaranteed or anything like that to keep it that way. It doesn't have any sense of permanence, if that makes sense. You want to give that sense of like, you know, this is the way it's always going to be. Anybody who watches Mandalorian, this is the new way. Yeah, you got a level 2 stat, a new mechanism erase 90% discrepancies. That makes it up to that upgrades it to level 4. Highly effective rating first in 3 years. We already saw that above. That's 3, 1, 4, 3. That equals 8. 8 divided by 3 is 2.6. Yeah, and that was the lowest voted. So got some insights out of this study. Regardless, we can all agree, you know, the higher level you get, you know, the better people are going to think that's the higher chance people are going to think that's a really well written bullet. So let's go to the next slide and look at some insights I got from that. So I don't expect you to remember everything those bullets said, but I gave you a summary right here. Bullet 1, we had a level 2, 1, 1, 2 stat. And we had a 2, 2, 4, 3, a 1, 6, 4, and a 1, 4, 3, right? So one thing I noticed is that level 1 stats are destructive to your bullets. Look at this. Bullets 2 and 3, they both total 11. See that? Bullet 3 even had a level 6, but it also had a level 1. Right? So the first bullet had 23% of votes and bullet 3 had 23% of votes. Like they both had the same amount of votes, but there's a stark difference in what level they achieved for data. But that level 1 is really, really destructive. You got 11 points here, 11 points there. But one of those basic stats, the thing that we use all the time, really hurt like the excitement and the power of that bullet. All right, so let's look at another insight. Volume of data can sometimes help. Look at bullet 4. We got we got a total of 8. And then there it is. And then bullet 1, we got a total of 6. Now you're looking at this, it's like, how does bullet 1, which has 2 instances of level 1 and 2 of 2 have 23% votes, and down here it's got a 4 and a 3, and it didn't get as many votes? What happened? It even got a better average. Bullet 4 did. What we're seeing is that bullet 4 only has 3 pieces. Sorry, screen froze there. I'm sorry. Bullet 1 had 4. So maybe volume of data helps. But why does bullet 1 not only just beat bullet 4, but it crushed it? I mean, you look at it going down the page, bullet 4 has more level points than bullet 1, higher average, but less votes. So it can't just be just volume. There's got to be something else going on. So one thing that I also want to show you is that in the same study with those E9s, O5s, and O6s, there was another question that says, what do you think matters most in a bullet? And they said readability along with scope. All right. So let's look at readability. Bullet 1. So it says as far as readability, not overloading it with acronyms, slashes, abbreviations, all that. Let's look at bullet 1. There's 1. So we're pointing out all the acronyms and slashes and abbreviations and all that. 1, 2, 3, 4. We got 4 abbreviations. Bullet 4, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We also talk about scope, right? So they both say, we can probably all agree, rare is pretty equivalent as far as, generally speaking, rare is equivalent to first in 3 years. Like it's, something that only comes around once every 3 years is pretty rare, But what really got it? It's a similar scope, but bullet 1 has some action behind it when it comes to the scope. You merited this rare rating. Bullet 4 or whatever, the bottom bullet on the screen, it just says highly effective rating first in 3 years. There's no like smooth transition. There's no like that you earned it, that you garnered it. There's no action in that impact. It's just suddenly you did all this, boom. By the way, highly effective rating first. So that could have influenced those upper levels leadership psyche a little bit. So in summary, this bullet up here only has 4 abbreviations, and it said it earned that rating. This bullet has got more. There's no descriptor in earning the rating. It's pretty abrupt. It's a fairly rough transition. So I could have given bullet 1 the edge over bullet 4. That makes sense. All right, so it is the top of the hour. Let's all take about a 5-minute break. You got to use the bathroom, whatever you got to do. And I'll just start assuming everybody's back in 5 minutes, and I'll continue. Thanks. And if anybody, I personally don't need a break, but if anybody wants to type in some questions, in the Q&A over the next 5 minutes, I'll try to address them. Just try not to flood it too much, but I'll get to it as best I can. So I'll actually stay here until I see a question. See if there's anything up here right now. Is my word list available online? Very good question. So this is what I got going on so far for it. So I have a massive, ridiculously, disgustingly large bullet writing guide that has that whirl in it. I have a mailing list actually that I send out to about 500 people across the Air Force. Anybody that wants to be on it, please don't type your email in here. Please, please. I will give you my email at the end of this, and you can email me that. Be like, hey, can I be on your mailing list? I send out the product about once every 2 weeks. Is about that tempo. So that's how often it'll go out. It'll have the word list. It'll have everything I'm teaching here, plus a lot more. Some stuff on AFI trap doors, timelines and suspenses across the AFI, all kinds of fun stuff. But I also have it on a Google Shared Drive, and it's also on the Facebook page. It's called Air Force Writing and Self-Improvement. Shout out to Tech Sergeant Ashley Glass for being the admin on it and getting our population up about 6,000 since November. So yeah, hope that answers the question. Oh, someone says for active guard and reserve, can you say total force? That was about 20 minutes ago. So I think I was talking about bullets. So that is, if the context of that is data, yeah, I mean, of course, you want to say total force. That's a really good, that's a fantastic scope. Probably equivalent to just Air Force, if you can get it to that level.
Are you gonna do a halftime show for us, Captain?
What's that?
Are you gonna do a halftime show for us?
A halftime show? I could. I think my wife is feeding baby right now. Otherwise, I'd bring her here and be like, "It's the future writing master." No. It's been a blast. Does anybody, if y'all can, are we still live streaming, Airman Torres?
We are, yes.
Sweet. Is anybody out there? Yeah, I'll just type my email in right here. Oh shoot, somehow I hit all caps. It is mikevetri18@gmail.com. And I'll give it again at the end anyway, in case anybody missed it during bathroom break. But does anybody shout outs? Anybody around here from Maryland at all, or stationed in Maryland, but really from Maryland? Anyone? Oh, there we go. We got one. Those Ravens. Yeah, there we go. Sweet.
We actually have a question from the Facebook on FSU.
Go for it.
Question from Crystal Karahan. She says, can you speak to impacts and relevance to bullet? Have you noticed a difference in bullet writing style between LAF and non-LAF?
Oh, line of the Air Force and non-line of the Air Force. Can you read the first part one more time?
Can you speak to impacts and relevance to bullets?
Impacts and relevance to bullets. So the impact of what you did in relation to a bullet. I think I'm understanding that correctly.
I think so. The question's
Okay.
really weird.
So yeah, I mean, so Tongue and Quill says every bullet should be action result impact as a general syntax format, if you will. There are other kind of alternate ways. The push lines on OPRs and APRs are always, sometimes they break that. They'll start off with phenomenal CGO or stellar senior NCO. But getting back to your question on impacts, that's pretty much, so the impact of a bullet is pretty much answering the who cares of what you're talking about, right? So you're saying you've done all this, cool stuff, you've configured all this, blah, 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 and then why should anybody care? And that's at least in my opinion, arguably the most important part of a bullet, and maybe even evaluation, only second to your push lines. So impacts, as far as one thing you want to make sure is when you're writing your impact, make sure that it can actually tie in to what you're talking about without, like I said, falling flat or over exploding it. One general rule of thumb I try to do with impacts is think about the second and third order effects. So from a cyber perspective, or even a security, I do too much cyber. Security forces perspective, let's say, that let's see. Okay, so you have I know very little about security forces, apologies. So imagine, you just got this new, what you call it, a pack of canine dogs? It's like a pack of wolves. Like 20 more dogs, and they're fully trained in bomb and drug detection, which from what I heard is rare. Well, let's just pretend like it's a real thing. So now, like, okay, the first order effect is now your detection percentage of bombs and drugs are up mathematically 100% than what they were, because now each dog doubles in that specialty. But what about a second and third order effect of an increase in bomb and drug dogs? The results are going to speak to itself. Have you not only have you not only detected more, but now are you able to kind of see trends where, you know, how often these bombs are being picked up, or where, or how they're being disguised and stuff like that. And now you can kind of implement that into training. Like, look, these are the most common that we're seeing. And these are, you know, maybe a little bit more rare drugs that our dogs are picking up. Or these are the techniques that people are trying to hide their drugs and stuff like that. So not only can you detect them, but now you can see a whole new set of data as well. I hope that makes sense. Oh, someone graduated from UNM. Sweet, terrible. What page will these be posted on Facebook? Says he's got to go to employment, so he's probably already missed it. So it's Air Force writing and self-improvement. It's also the Air Force quarantine university. I think it's also some kind of, there's another one that's like Air Force leadership, and there's a fourth page as well. It's like Sam Fox University is the one that are hosting this.
Yes,
As a
Sam
senior
Fox
leader,
University, Quarantine University, and Leadership University.
sweet.
So those are all the pages that'll be sharing this video.
Appreciate it, man. So I'm about to get back on it here so I can be done. So please hold the questions to the end. Let's see. As a senior leader, how do you capture what you do when all you seemingly do is answer emails, phone calls, attend meetings without using some of the faux pas you spoke of, fluff words, and not taking credit for your operators? Shout out to Cyber. Yes, yes. I know we enable our divisions to do their job, but it does seem like a bunch of BS on paper. All right. So I get it. To Senior Master Sergeant Gray, like, you know, so my job in the 33rd was Chief of Training. So really, was I personally developing all this new curriculum and material for the ACD weapon system? Little. And that was basically on my knowledge and my insight. But really, we had people that were hired to do that job and develop curriculum and stuff like that. And I felt the same guilt. Like, I'm not the one making the new training pipeline and all. I'm signing the paperwork, I'm giving them guidance, but I'm not the one doing it. And it's really hard to kind of expel yourself from what the operators are doing, and you're the ones kind of doing the, like you said, answering the emails and the phone calls and attending meetings. So to answer your question, it's really difficult not to, I say this very delicately because I know there are operators out there that are doing the real fun, cool stuff. It isn't the admin stuff that are like, oh, hey, Captain, that's my bullet, thanks. Yeah, I get the Air Force culture on that, and there is a sense of guilt. But one thing that I would kind of steer towards is not maybe necessarily that you did it yourself, but that, you know, and you'll see when I get to the future of OPR writing, which is very similar as far as a perspective for the senior NCOs, to relate it to the AFI 1-2, which is for officers, but it's the LIME acronym. It is the 4 major graded areas where it's leading people, improving the unit, managing resources, executing the mission. So kind of use verbiage that says you led your people to enable this, or how did you give them resources? Did you set up the environment for them? Focus more on setting the stage. How did you set the stage? How did you give them the resources and give them everything they need so that they could do this mission? So when I was Chief of Training, the middle part kind of spoke on the training that my team enabled, and I kind of gave them the resources to. And then the impact was all the cool, sweet stuff that as Chief of Training, my instructors taught, and what it led the operators to do, which in this venue I can't really talk about, but it was some really sweet stuff that the operators were able to do because of this new curriculum. Well, that's an example, but like I said, I would focus on the managing the resources and the improving the unit, because of course we all want our EPRs and OPRs to have some kind of leadership verbiage in there, to kind of meet halfway between that admin stuff and not feeling too guilty about saying that you did what your operators did. So I hope that answers the question. I can elaborate more, but I'm just going to go ahead and jump back into the presentation. I think it's been a little bit more than 5. So I'm going to go ahead and begin to share my screen again. All right. So I'm just trusting that the screen is sharing. If it's not, actually, can everybody seeing it? I hope so. I should be able to get little notifications up here that, you know, people are talking or saying stuff. So can someone kind of type in, yep, I'm seeing like this matrix, this rainbow matrix. Let me actually go back out to chat. Sorry, I'm going to go back out to chat so I can actually see y'all's answers. And then I promise we'll get going. So people said, yeah. All right, so I'm going to go back. All right, and here we go. All right, so I am a little bit of a math nerd, and I don't apologize for it. So I gave this some thought, and I'm like, all right, what are the two main factors that I can kind of think about that will really determine, you know, the power of a bullet? You could call it the power factor if you want, or its overall score. You name it. How sweet, sexy, imaginable it is. So I came up with this matrix because I'm an exec. I have a lot of free time, and I can do this. So here's my little organizational level versus statistical level score sheet, whatever you want to call it. Long story short, before you freak out, because there's numbers everywhere, I get it, is that it compares, or it takes into it two factors, and it computes a score on how powerful your bullet is. And we're going to go into that. I've already done the math for you. It's in the cells, but just because I'm a math nerd, you got the formula below. So it takes in what level is your bullet speaking to. So remember we talked about organizational levels. Let's say, the easiest example I can give, let's say maybe there's captains out there. You're a captain and you're a flight commander, right? So on the left-hand side, it talks about the organizational level above you that you influence. So if your bullet speaks at the flight level, you're at 0 over here on the left side. You're not any levels above yourself. You talked on the flight level, you're a flight commander, you got a 0. If you're at the squadron, you know, now you're talking about 1. Group, 2. Wing, 3. MAGCOM, 4. Air Force, 5. Or there's 5 plus. You know, maybe the DOD level. Because once you get to 5, I mean, everything down here is green and blue, which are good colors, and you'll see up here. It also takes into account what level statistic did you provide. Remember, uniqueness and data crunching is power. When you come up with new data and you can convey that data in a meaning and powerful way on this C6 model, 1 to 6, you get a higher score. It's more impressive. So there's level 1, which is characterization level. You know, we talked about that, the $5,000 system, you know, the stuff where like, I don't know if that's a lot or a little, comparative, compiled. Y'all remember that. Okay, so in that study that I mentioned in April 2020, there were about 15%, you'll see down here, if I can't highlight because I don't have to X out. But in this first mini paragraph, second line, 15 more respondents indicated, that those upper leadership guys, that scope is important over meaningful data. It was like 25 and 21 of them. So it's roughly 15% more that thinks that scope is more important than data. So I came up with this mathematical formula, 1.15 of scope plus the statistical level that you're reporting at is going to give you a number, right? And so that number kind of dictates how powerful is your bullet on a scale of negative 0.15 all the way to almost 13, right? I mean, really, this could go on almost indefinitely, but you're probably not going to wander outside this zone, probably 100% of us. And so you may be wondering, hey, man, how did you come up with, who are you to say that, you know, a bullet at this scope and this level is like garbage, and this is like okay, and this is the minimum? I thought of examples, right? A flight commander that's talking about a scope on the section level with a level 1 stat, yeah, that deserves a negative 0.15 score. Like, you're a captain and you're given a bullet that talks about your section level, and that's the most you can talk about in that scope, like that's bad. So I thought about boundaries. All right. So let's say you're a captain talking about section level and it's nothing really more than compiled. Oh yeah, your section is 98% ready. It's not really that good. You might as well just throw it away. But if you combine something, hey, your section went from 80% to 98, like, all right, well, you're getting there, but you're still talking about a section. So notice, if you ever really talk about an organizational level below where you sit, all of this is either black or red. So if I can go up here and explain all these colors, if you get a score of 2 or below, which is black, you really got to rethink things. Like really try to get more data. Think about, are there second and third order effects that you can kind of use to make a better impact? And then we get your 2 to 4. You know what? Hey, maybe you're a captain and you're talking about how you procured $500,000 for, what would it be, the wing. Like, okay, that's kind of cool, but 500K, is that a lot, little? In my cyber wing, 500K is a drop in the bucket. Like, so you're not really there yet, but if you absolutely are struggling for bullets, hey, that's why I said up here, this little scale, 2 to 4, we'll kind of nickname your middle bullets. For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, when you write an evaluation or a 1206, usually it's the middle bullets that you kind of hide a bit because they aren't that good, because it's an Air Force cultural thing where the top and the bottom bullets are the most powerful, right? Now we're getting to the 5 to 6.5 range. So anything that's in yellow in here, hey, it's worthy, like not bad, you're getting there. So let's say you're a captain, and you did something at the group level, and it's a compiled stat, like, hey, all the operators in your group, the reporting time is now down by 38%. All right, it's pretty cool. You're getting there. Can you kind of stretch out maybe to the wing, or now that you know that, if you know that the operator readiness or whatever I said is 38% better, can you maybe forecast how that's going to be in a couple months? Because if you have done this much work for a group, you've probably kept some kind of notes along the way that can say, not only is the 38% better now, but we're going to be here in a couple months, or maybe, no, guaranteed, this is how it's always going to be. Causal mechanisms. Now we're in the green, right? Speaking of green, if you get a score of 6.5 to 9, which is this, I want to say, you know what? That's pretty much your top or bottom bullets. Now you've aced it now. Or I won't say ace because that's in blue. That's your Queen of Hearts and King of Spades. Like, yes, like that. That's the one that might want to start tipping the scales on a awards board. Light blue. This is some really cool stuff. You're a captain. Let's say, what's 3 levels above flight commander? We got squadron, group, wing. You came up with a causal mechanism, or maybe, even MAGCOM, you can predict something, or above that, something DODY. It could be something as simple as a DOD instruction, or an ACC instruction, or an AFI that you helped rewrite. Like, I mean, you see how fast that can blow up? Like, you went to an AFI rewrite party, and you influenced all operators across the Air Force. Rapidly, you're up at like a level 5, and all you need is like some kind of compiled stat. Maybe not, like it's still a green. But this blue zone is like, these are your aces. If I can keep the deck of cards analogy, these are your aces that, I mean, are going to be really hard to beat. If you can get 1 or 2 of these in here in even a quarterly award package, like, my goodness, you should be dominating. So that's just a little reference of like, when you're gauging, is this going to be competitive or not? Hey, numbers don't lie. And I just showed you scope, impact, and level of data. Like the senior leaders agree, like, the higher level data you have, or like volume, the more damage you can do. All right, so some examples, right? Here we go. I'm going to blast all these on here right now. So we got a flight commander fixes a team level issue that will guarantee increased success. So stat level 6, well, he's a flight commander at the team level. He's got a 4.85. Next example, a flight commander provides input to an Air Combat Command MAGCOM instruction, Vol 1, to add 4 more valuable or lethal knowledge, skills, and abilities. So flight commander, that's squadron, group, wing, MAGCOM. So that's 4 levels above. Stat level is 2, 4 more, right? was 6.6. He could have modeled it as a percent. That would have got him a little bit higher, deeper in the green, but he's in the green. It's pretty good. Sorry that all these are flight level, examples. Flight level, commander, captain tests and implements a new processing tool to cut investigation time by 78% across the wing. So it's wing level, a level 3 stat, 7.45. And then here we go. Flight commander or captain stands up this new IQT program in-house that will preserve 35% of the wing budget. 35% is a level, wing budget each year after implementation. So it's not just he preserved it, there's that sense of permanence each year. So it's a level 6, a jump to level 6. He can confidently say, we are always going to save 35% of our budget with this new efficient IQT program. So we're at a wing level 3 levels above them, and all the way over to level 6. Making us the largest recorded savings. Okay, yeah, in the past decade. I mean, that's just extra bells and whistles. But you get it, level 3, level 6, we're at a 945 in the blue. Like, you see the kind of influence. Like, anybody who may be a flight NCOIC out there, you see how if you can come up with a good idea that can save your wing a certain amount of money, and you can convey that it's permanent. I mean, look at that. There's your ace card right there in blue. Numbers don't lie. All right, moving on. So here's when I would kind of do a couple of practical exercises. This was a two-way venue, but I'll just kind of jog your, get your brain gears going. Obviously we can't discuss it two-way, but I'll kind of let you read it, take it in. So the whole idea is to read the narrative. By the way, there's some little Easter eggs in the narrative. Let's see if you catch them. Read the narrative, look at the bullet they came up with, and maybe think about, how can I make this better? So I'm going to pause for maybe 2 minutes on each bullet, give you a chance to read the bullet, and then think, can I make the scope better? Can I make it a sense of permanence? Can I model this maybe as a percentage instead? Is there the infamous destructive level 1 stack too many times in there? Stuff to think about. So here we go. I'll read it. Master Sergeant Leroy Jenkins, get it, processed 70 security forces reports this month for only those assigned under his supervision. Only those assigned under his supervision. These reports include the location of the incident, the time reported, time arrived on scene, if a matter of life or death was involved, and the time in which the troops left the scene. So the bullet they came up with ensured rapid response to over 70 threats on base, processed 70 reports with 100% closure, and 10,000 members were safely preserved. So this is where I'm going to shut up for about 2 minutes and kind of think about, in your own mind, how can this be better with the data I know? Or maybe what data should we look for given this event? And then I'll kind of give my opinion on it. Actually, if you want, go ahead and feel free to type into the chat what extra data you think you would want or how you would change it. I mean, can all learn together. You're welcome to chat in here if you want. If you're on the Zoom call, I know Facebook you might not be able to. I personally can't see it right now. So let's see what the crowd thinks. let's see what we got here. I'll share again. Comparative 70 a lot. Only World of Warcraft nerds get that reference. Nice. All right. So I still got my, I know I'm still, showing myself, but some of the things I came up with were, hey, it mentioned if a matter of life or death was involved. So maybe report, did you save extra lives? I mean, Air Force loves to hear that on a report, right? Percent increase where they're traditionally like, usually the life-saving rate was this, but now it jumped up. How fast were the cases processed? There's that. Instead of saying 10,000 members, why not just give it the scope of the base? I mean, instantly you go from this level 1 stat to a scope that can be, let's see, does it say in here what level he's at? I don't know, but probably squadron and security forces. So instantly we're jumping, at least 2 levels instead of just giving a raw level 1 stat. So things to think about. If it was suicides, could focus on half level imperative. Okay, whoever Fuji is, that is extremely good insight. I like that. So, all right, all good stuff. So for next one, go ahead. So there's 2 more. Go ahead and feel free to type what you think is people could research. So let me go ahead and share my screen again, and I'll bring up the next situation. I'll read it out for you. First Lieutenant Mañanita, get it? Led an effort to reduce the amount of clutter tools in his unit's cyber defensive weapons system. I know cyber again. In his marking period for his OPR, he was able to drop the number of tools that operators need to use, sped up the processing time to finish an investigation, and on some occasions, and for the first time, he was able to stop a threat before the famous 1849, which indicates how fast an enemy can get in and snoop around. So that last part is saying that an enemy traditionally takes 18 minutes and 49 seconds to move around in a network, unclassified, once they get in. So this is saying that for the first time ever, his team is able to move faster than an enemy's movement. So the bullet they came up with was Helm the DCO weapon system tool consolidation, cut a tool set from 75 down to 12, outran the top advanced persisting threats. The top 3, I think, is what it's supposed to be getting at, APTs, and it's the first time ever faster than the number 1 threat. So go ahead and take 2 minutes to think on that, and feel free right now, even if you're you already know what you want to say, go ahead and start typing away if you're on the Zoom call on what you think would be better statistics or scopes or whatever it may be for this bullet. All right, let's see what the crowd's got. I'm gonna escape. Whoops, whoa. Stop my share and see what y'all got. All right. Percent for the portion cut, very nice. Let's go back in there, make sure I know. Percent portion cut. So I believe you're referring to, oh, from 75 to 12 tools. I see what you mean. I got you. Yes. Very good. Yeah. So 75 to 12, that looks roughly about public math, 86%. All right. Was this a benchmark for the MDT? Really nice. Yeah. So is it spread across the entire web? Is it? I see what you mean. So is it pretty much like a new standard? Um, was this adopted by the entire Cyberforce? First time faster than number one is way too wordy. Yep. Benchmark cybersecurity Air Force wide or something along. There you go. Like Air Force wide. Um, So I mean, you can see what Fuji said there, and Kevin KP Kirkpatrick. You know, that can easily jump up the scope when you're figuring out scope versus data level. I mean, we're talking Air Force wide or even like the entire weapon system wide. That's a heck of a jump. Percent portion cut. That brings up our score as far as level 3 stat. Very nice. Things I came up with: the investigation processing time. So it said it dropped. And so it did say that it's faster than these APTs. Maybe we can get that up to a level 5. We may not know at this point if we're always going to be faster, but if they've been tracking like, okay, we were faster this time, not this time at 75, this time, not this time, it's still 75%. You could say like develop this mechanism where, outpacing adversaries 75% in future, or step 2, that gives you a level 5 stat right there. Very good insight, by the way. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to Sharon, and then one last scenario, at least on this concept. One more. Major Smitty Werben Jaegerman Jansen is a U2 pilot. By the way, whoever types it in the reference first gets a cookie. Is a U2 pilot that completed 201 sorties this past year. His missions included ISR over several countries in the Middle East, 25 of which were during the lead up to the end of ISIS in the capitals of Mosul and Raqqa. So knowing that information, we know that he piloted 201 ISR sorties over CENTCOM zone, 49 terabytes of data to the intelligence community. This is all made up, by the way, so don't think I'm doing a CMI spillage here. 2,400 flying hours, led to the recapture of 2 ISIS capitals. So y'all have fun with that. I'm gonna let y'all think on that for a couple minutes. let's see what folks have got here. All right, so what input? Lego SpongeBob reference, nice. Good job, Smitty. Wow, you even sound like Smitty, Warvin, Jagerman, Jensen. All right. Is the number of sorties below average or above? Yep, I caught that too. Is 201 a lot? Yep, most are unit or platform. It's also what I wrote down. Nobody cares about 49 terabytes of data. Well, I do. I'm cyber, but I get your point. I'm just kidding. Flying hours. Could someone have gotten more data faster? Nice. Impact could easily be DoD or even NATO. Yeah. Yeah, look at that. Flying hours is the job. Find something. Yep, I like it. Fuji, man, you are on a roll. You've got some mountainous intelligence there. I'm sorry, I'm a dad. I gotta throw the dad jokes out. So don't worry. All right. So one thing I picked up on, everybody pretty much detected the level 1 stats there, right? So one thing that I kind of also picked up on was, oh shoot, what I was gonna say. Oh, the 201 sorties, and then here, let me share screens again. Bring this guy up. And all right, so one thing I picked up on, we got 201 ISR sorties and 2,400 flying hours. To me, that is the same. You are talking about the same thing in 2 different measurements, units of measurement. Like, if I can make an analogy, it's like, yep, I don't know, let's say Air Force Marathon. Ran for 4 hours, blah, 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 26.2 miles covered. It's like, okay, you're telling me the same thing. Like, you know, you're giving me the same story, just different, same song, different verse. Like, okay. Anyway, moving on. You're right. 49 terabytes of data. Nobody knows what that is. Is it faster? Did it get there expeditiously? If it's, I'm not sure. I'm not intelligence community. If it's not unclassified, you know, anything with high value targets, pick up on like, you know, higher priority, maybe the way you can say it, or IC number 1 priority, or 2 if you have to keep it on the unclass side. You know, what could you say? But everybody else pretty much caught it. There's every single one of these levels of data. They're all level 1. Every single one are level 1. So remember when I showed you that score sheet? If you're going to have level 1 data, you better have a ridiculously high scope to make up for it on that little matrix calculator. I mean, he's got CENTCOM going on, but whoever said, you know, this could easily be a NATO-wide impact, I mean, it's going to take that to make up for 3 or 4 level 1 data entries. So yeah, good catch. Anyway, moving on. So I'm going to do a short segment on trapdoors. I think I got about 20 minutes left. Yeah, short segment on trapdoors. So what are trapdoors? They're pretty much those rules in the evaluation AFI that surprise us. So we're shifting gears just slightly. It's only for like 3 slides. Don't panic. Of rules in the AFI that we're not too familiar with, that not everybody knows. So yours truly has, in his enormous amount of free time being an exec and, you know, with a beautiful baby, I have looked through 271 pages of that AFI to be like, I bet that would trip somebody up, or it has already tripped me up. So, yep, they're not well known. And so the next, I think 2 or 3 slides, I'm not going to list all of them. In my guide, I think I have about 150. I think I only have about like 25 or so coming up. I will say this, there is a trapdoor in here that is going to cause controversy. A lot of people are going to disagree with it. You will know it when you see it. Raiders are going to hate me. Ray-Ts are going to love me. Don't hate the player, hate the game. I didn't write the rules. I'm just letting you know what they are, even these weird ones. So anyway, moving on. So if you want the complete list that I've came up with, it's in my bullet writing guide, or you can also read the 271-page AFI. I mean, if you have a hard time going to sleep, there you go. One random chart I made is this little pie chart that depicts all 10 chapters and the intro of the entire AFI. It was just rewritten this past November 19, and you can see here what the heaviest chapters are, the ones that have the most pages, and the ones that are the leanest. So EPRs, chapter 4 is the heaviest, and right behind them are PRFs. I mean, PRFs is how we decide our senior leaders in the Air Force. Of course, there's going to be a lot of regs on that. Surprisingly, general officer evals are only 3%, and the retention recommendation form chapter. But the eval AFI, a lot of people when they think evals, it's only OPRs, EPRs. 100% wrong. Well, 90%. There's like 8 more chapters. There's LOEs, RRFs, training forms. You can see down in here, we got ACAs, how to do ACAs. Of course, every AFI's got their intro. So this covers a multitude of official forms that document how you perform. And then everybody's favorite, if I can find it on here. Oh, here it is. Up in the left, the first one above the first white bubble above over here. Top left, correcting eval. So chapter 10. So if you ever have a dispute or you think you've been wronged on an eval, there is an entire chapter on if you don't like your eval, here's the appeal process. You better have evidence and a reason why to dispute your eval. Anyway, trapdoors, here we go. All these background pictures have a purpose, so don't freak out on me. So the first one, did you know, take this as did you know, bullets can actually be up to 2 lines. I talked about that earlier, spoiler alert. So we're gonna move on. Radies can actually use nicknames, so there's that. Also, if you didn't know, no continuation sheets are allowed if you run out of room to write your abbreviations or acronyms on that back part of the eval. That should be a signal, if you have to go to that, to rewrite the bullets. Get rid of all those Zorro rival bullets, right? All right, new to this one. It is now commander's discretion that if you failed a PT test, he gets to decide if it's a referral. It used to be, you fail a PT test, referral. Now we try to focus on the whole airman concept and be like, yeah, you failed that PT test, but I noticed you're a great performer. You've never been late on anything. And, it was a freaking cold day. The winds were barely in regs and you were feeling sick. You tried to be a hero and you didn't pass. I don't know. But that gives authority down to commanders because referral EPRs hurt. It's also commander discretion on if you're going to have a non-rated period. Non-rated period used to have black and white rules like, if you were gone because of a serious medical procedure or whatever it may be. Now it's commander discretion. Did you know minimum rank to be evaluated for an officer can be an officer of the same rank? So if you're a first lieutenant, your raider can be a first lieutenant or a civilian of equivalent rank. Enlisted, I don't know if you knew, but it could be anybody your rank or higher. So staff sergeants, you can be rated by a staff sergeant, or a civilian of equal or higher rank. If it's going to be civilian, they have to be at least GS5. All right, here's the one. Calm down when you see this. I'm going to get some grumbles and I'm going to get some cheers and I'm going to be able to hear it all across San Antonio at the same time. That's going to give some people some controversy. Raise your hand, because I know some of you are in groups. Yeah, raise your hand if you've ever been told to, hey, send me some draft bullets for your OPR. Send me some draft bullets for your EPR. Yeah, anybody? I mean, I can feel the wave across San Antonio a little bit. And I know some of you aren't here, but I know that some are watching from San Antonio. Yep, we've all probably done it. Don't freak out, but here's another trap door. This is verbatim out of the AFI, except I emphasize all caps. The ratee will not be directed to write or draft any portion of his or her own performance report. Paragraph 1636. It is in there. It's in chapter 1, so you know it's important. I already got chit chat on the Zoom. This is awesome about it. Yeah. Now, is that rule broken? Probably. But if any rater, oh no, it just says like, just don't write it, or it may not, or no, it is flat out will not. And it's not just writing it, it's drafting it too. Now it does say before it that the ratee can provide some input about accomplishments and all. It doesn't say what form, whether you type it out or verbalize it or whatever. But this is new. This is cleared ratees, even though I know we're all still trying to get through this new AFI lag. Ratees should not ever be writing their own evaluation, OPR or EPR. I can just imagine right now there are a bunch of people Googling AFI 362406 and control effing 1636. Go ahead. All right, moving on with trapdoors. This is SOS. You'll see why I put this picture in here. SOS was fun. Anybody who's a captain or a CGO that hasn't been through SOS, you're gonna have a blast. Anyway, so if the rater or additional rater kind of gives you two different assessments, like one thinks, you know, it should be a referral and the other disagree, or vice versa, the final say always goes to the additional rater. If you're going to get a referral eval, you got 3 business days to respond. By the way, evaluator or rater, you're not allowed to tell the additional rater or anything about the comments you're writing until your ratee has been given a chance for a rebuttal. Oh, midterm feedback is always mandatory. In fact, it says something in the eval that NA or pretty much didn't get around to it. However they jazz it up and say it pretty in the AFI, that pretty much NA or didn't get around to it is not an excuse. So that midterm feedback has to happen. I know we all get busy, but I mean, if you're going to give someone a referral and you never gave them midterm feedback, guess who's going to win that legal battle? You didn't set the standard for me. So, I mean, if it's something obvious, like they got a DUI, come on, like that's probably going to be a referral. But yeah, I expected you to get this done 3 times a week and you didn't. Well, you didn't tell me, you didn't give me midterm, so I win that one. That's a rough example. Officers out there, if you're a rater, you can only do PDE, IDE, or SDE on OPR. So that's SOS, ACSC, Air War College, all that. No AFIT. You can push to be assigned to AFIT, like permanent party. And it says that in the AFI. But you can't say push for Expeditionary Warfare School or push for, I don't know, random Army Air Assault School because he's ridiculously fit. No, that's the only school pushes that are authorized. Also, there's this thing called an OPR closeout extension. It can go up to 59 days past the closeout, but it's only to document bad behavior. So you can't say, you know, by the way, if you want this to happen, you have to contact AFPC. It's not like a tier 3 waiver. So they already make it a miserable process for a reason. You don't get to do this just to hold it out like, oh, let's see if he gets, you know, his closeout is, June 2nd, but I want to wait for, you know, the wing award, the wing annual awards to see if he won, you know. No, just write the OPR. There's next year. All right. So officers, if you are a distinguished grad, but it was not indicated on your training report, or you didn't get a training report, did you know your rater can actually put that in for comments? Yeah, I got DG 1 of 33, and then the remarks fill in the criteria in section 10 on what DG is for that schoolhouse. Oh, if officers just hate, you know, being in the Air Force, they just flat out desert. The day of desertion is the closeout, and it can only have negative comments. So if I'm doing stellar, because my OPR closeout, holy cow, is actually today. Look at that. I promise. So my OPR closeout is today. And let's say yesterday I decided to completely, you know, peace out, run away, grab my family and go. Doesn't matter if I've done great stuff since May 27th of 2019. It can only have negative stuff on it, negative comments. I mean, you deserted. You went against your oath. Like, come on. All right, I think this is the last trapdoor one. Yep. All right, senior NCO, if you want to strat, you got to get an associate's degree or better. I don't know if you knew that. I think that's relatively new from the talk I've heard. Maybe not, but that's now a thing. For the seasoned officers out there, and anybody that is involved in writing training reports, you have to give an officer a training report if they're in that training for 10 days or more. SOS is 6 weeks. If an officer is playing a certain game in SOS, which you're not supposed to find out until you get there, and you end up hurting yourself, but you at least made it 10 days, you get a training report if you got hurt on day like 10 or 11. So yeah, even though it's 6 weeks long, you need a training report. I don't know what they're going to write on you that, you know, for you only being there 10 days, but you're going to get a TR. Okay, so when we get the PRFs, this is more towards, you know, the lieutenant colonels and above. The senior raider can't give you a strat, and for senior raiders out there, you cannot strat against other officers in that promo category that they're going up for, whether it's definitely promote, promote, do not promote. So there's only 4 strats you can give. It's amongst duty position and rank, and a couple others, but you absolutely cannot say, my number 1 of 5 DPs. Like, no, not allowed. Management level review board is the one that does, you know, who's going to promote and all that and everything like that. So let them do their job. Retention recommendation form. So anybody that's been in since at least 2013 probably remember sequestration, the reduction in force and all that. It was a pretty rough time. And we had to go through retention recommendation boards or RIF boards. It was not fun. I had to sit with my commander and kind of say which NCOs are staying and which ones aren't. And I didn't really like doing that. Nobody does. But there are 3 things they're one of 3 things you're going to put on a retention recommendation form. And it's definitely retain, or do not retain. One thing you cannot do ever is say do not retain. Or you can't make a decision on any of these based on the member's intent to leave the Air Force. So if you got a really high quality performing NCO, and even if he says he's going to retire or separate, your job is to retain the best people in the force based on the performance you have seen and what they've done and performance potential. He may say he's going to retire. He may have an intent. It hasn't happened. It's a very weird, obscure AFI rule, but you can't say do not retain, even if you think he's going to, or he says he's going to retire. So that should do it for trapdoors. Now we're going to talk about general officer evals. I'm kidding. I know you're seeing this, and probably a lot of you, your pulse rate just jumped up like 200 beats per minute. I'm joking. This is just a little cool thing I put together in the Black Belt bullet writing guide. So there is a chapter on general officer evals. Probably 90% of you won't have to worry about it unless you become a general or you're an exec for a general. Long story short, the way you follow this is you find a little node, a little circle around here, and you follow that colored line to each little node, see where it goes, and it tells a story along the way. So just a random example. Let's start with the color. Let's start with general officer, and we'll go the purple path. Like this, just example how this works. So general officer, let's say he doesn't work for the management level, and a crow occurs. Then, following this purple arrow, the losing raider will complete block 1 to 14 in his eval. Then he's going to forward it to the losing management level, who's going to write the LOE, and he'll forward that and his eval to the gaining management level, who will complete block 16 and 19 for endorsement. And then there's no more purple arrows, so that's where it stops. You know, so it looks confusing, but if you just follow the little yellow brick road or purple arrow road or red arrow road, it's not too bad. I know it looks like spaghetti, but I don't think it's too bad, but I'm biased. Okay. All right, so this is the last thing we're going to talk about. This is more officer related. So, and this is just kind of showing you what the future of OPRs are kind of trending towards right now. So there's no guidance on it right now, but I'm getting this from a couple of colonels and the way they're talking up at the wing level and my group level. So pretty much, you're probably wondering why I have lines in the background. It's that acronym I mentioned earlier from the AFI 1-2, the major graded areas. So I call it LIME, even though in the actual AFI, it's not LIME, it's like execution first, leading people, manage resource, and improve the unit. So long story short, each one of those has kind of, you know, it describes how exactly you can execute the mission or lead people. So for example, we'll go down to manage resources. So when you're writing your OPRs, maybe try to start thinking about how is my content related to the major graded areas in a powerful document called the 1-2? So this is kind of order that it's mentioned in the AFI. Executing the mission, yep, that's pretty freaking important. You know, you want to do that always. Lead people, yeah, I guess it's a very close second. Manage resource and improve the unit. We always want to execute the mission in air and cyberspace because it looks like space is their own force now. But yeah, it's any of those actions that directly relate to the mission. So we already write bullets a lot on that. Like all of our job bullets just screams the mission that our squadron does. Maybe now start considering leading people. The readiness, I've talked about that a crap ton already with all those readiness examples I gave. Training, quality of life, are you developing new tools, stuff like that. Manage resources, budget allocation. So you're, like I said, saving the wing a certain amount, or you are guaranteed to save the wing a certain amount of money. That's managing resources. Or those at that MPA day example I gave, where now you got 120 more folks, or excuse me, 120 manpower assist days from your sister reserve unit. That's managing resources. And then improving the unit. So compliance, new procedures. Now I say compliance carefully. I'm not saying, you know, you're 100% uptime. No. I mean like really great compliance stuff. You went from broken to fixed, or you're already fixed and you went to highly effective, or stuff like that, the highest rating in the wing, you name it. But please don't just say in compliance. Or one of the bullets I saw lately on an OPR was 0 major discrepancies on inspection. And I'm like, well, you shouldn't have any discrepancies to begin with, but now that you're bragging about you didn't have any serious problems on a document where you only have 10 lines to describe all your achievements throughout the year, it seems like wasted space to me. So there's just some examples of improving the unit. Just be careful with compliance. There should be some kind of improvement to compliance highlighted, or that you did the best, or superior performers were identified, stuff like that. Identify best practices. Be careful of lessons learned, because that kind of implies you needed to learn lessons that you weren't already at the mark. So stuff like that. One of my favorite commanders, I say that carefully, you know, but one of my, I'll just say this, a very wise and admired commander I had for my time at Edwards, Colonel Buddy, always said with inspections, we want to be a best practice, not a lesson learned to future inspections. So kind of keep that in mind. And I believe that's going to be it, except final words. So let's see where I'm at on time. 4 minutes over, apologies. But remember I mentioned earlier, I am a black belt in Krav Maga. And so a little bit of question, how long does it take the average person to earn a black belt? The answer is an average person does not earn a black belt. Someone average is not going to earn a black belt. There's a lot that goes into it, right? So kind of same thing with bullet writing. I kind of make this cute little, you know, analogy of black belt bullet writing and all. And you'll see kind of like in future iterations, you know, when you're a black belt, you know, I'll make analogies to like maneuvers and stuff you can do and all in the guide. But the fact of the matter is that it takes severe practice to get up to a black belt, right? Or name your craft: woodworking, sprints, working out. You know, it takes discipline and time and grind and frustration and stuff like that. So that's kind of the same thing in bullet writing. And knowing evaluation processes really well and all. When you think of a martial arts black belt, you think of someone that can't even be touched. Like you try to throw a punch at them from every direction, you're going to get your butt kicked or more. So same thing. Like it takes a lot of studying and a lot of practice and a lot of learning from others as well to really start to transfer, so to speak, from the white belt. You know, that senior airmen that are listening, I apologize, but the senior airmen that haven't, you know, been exposed to bullet writing too much until ALS, you know, to the yellow, orange, green, blue, purple, brown, black. And that's why I tried to kind of give you some words of wisdom and some insight in those research questions of kind of black belt equivalents, or people that are very experienced and very high in rank that have done this a lot. Senior leadership that have been on at least 11 or more awards boards or promotion boards. safe to say they got a lot of experience. They may not all be black, maybe they're brown, but we can trust their higher level. So everybody's got their different style, right? Just like in martial arts, I make this analogy all the time. You know, someone's coming at you with, you know, a certain maneuver. Some people prefer kicks. Some people prefer, you know, a punch, name it, a wrist lock. But, you know, sometimes it takes some trend analysis and really kind of seeing what's going on in the Air Force culture, and even some mathematical crunching, like, you know, what I did to show like, no, this is really what's going to get attention and going to win. It's uniqueness, it's distinction, and it's quality data presentation. And, you know, those three weapons at your disposal, that they're going to win, they're going to beat the competition 9 times out of 10. So I guess those are my, you know, final words. I wish you guys all the best. Thank you for taking the time to let me teach. And most importantly, stay safe out there. I know we have a pandemic going on. So, you know, take care of yourselves. And I'm open for questions at any given time with this. So thank you very much for coming in and listening to me talk for 2 hours. And I greatly appreciate it. So thank you and God bless. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Captain Vetri. That was an awesome presentation. I'm pretty sure a lot of people got a lot of good tidbits and tips from that.
And I'm still here for questions.
Yes, we still have questions. We do have one question.
All right, sweet. And type away on Zoom as well. I'm going to be here a bit.
So we got another question from Crystal Carahan. She said,
Right.
clarifying question, how was he able to speed up the processing time? Best practice that he can share / implemented at MAJCOM or higher scope?
I think, Crystal, if you're still on, maybe you can clarify, but I think that may have been a missed Q&A from when we were given those scenarios. And I was kind of telling people, yeah, go ahead and type away. Let me see what your inputs are. How can you speed up processing time? I think that was a reference to the second scenario. I may be wrong. So, but I think when I was saying like, what can we consider and what data can we add? That's, I think, what Crystal was alluding to. 2 Q&As. Oh, I got some Q&As on Zoom. Can you recommend a first lieutenant? Can you recommend a first lieutenant for PDE now if they're putting on captain 1 month after their OPR? Yes. Yes. And then how much longer am I at JBSA? Oh, there's Fuji again. So that's a good question. It could be anywhere from a year to 2 more years. My exec job is coming to an end in 13 business days. Well, actually now it's 12 because the day's pretty much over, at least in our time zone. So 12 days, my exec job comes to an end. I'm going to be going to the 616th Operations Center to go be an SDO. So that's going to be a blast. So I'm definitely going to be there at least a year. And then my follow-on, it may be a PCS or it may be going into their cyber planning division, or excuse me, combat planning division or strategic division, or it might be a PCS. So 1 to 2 years, but 1 year definitely. Is the PowerPoint slideshow available? So I'm going to type in my email again. It's mikevetri18@gmail.com. And so my plan is for this this upcoming weekend, when I send out my mass email, that I'm just going to send the slideshow out to everybody so they can have it. So I'll just be careful kind of viewing it from kind of like the notes view or the editing view, because if you notice, I had a ton of animations. So if you're not really watching the animations, you can be confused, like, what's all this coming from? It looks jumbled. So if it looks like that, you might want to open it up and watch the animations. But yeah, so one thing, there's also a shared Google Drive I have that has the guide and the PowerPoint. I know the next question is, can we have a link? It's a very ugly alphanumeric string. I'll get that and put it in the email so people can get it and access it. Oh, Senior Master Sergeant Gray, I'll see you there. All right. Yeah, I think I really am going to COD. I think my I think it's going to be Colonel Crowell, is what my 2096 said. So that's going to be cool. Can we put it on YouTube for non-Facebookers? Go for it. Yes, sure, why not? That's cool. So I got anybody, still 23 attendees. All right. I'm still here if anybody wants to ask. The link is also on Air Force Quarantine. That's true. And it's also, yep, the Air Force, I think it's writing, Air Force Writing and Self-Improvement Facebook page. That page is a blast, by the way. Not that I'm trying to advertise it too much, but there's a lot of great things that go on in there. Not saying we're competing with Air Force Quarantine to be most popular, but you know,
No, go ahead. I love
go
blogging
team
with all those pages.
Yeah. All right. All right. So if no one's got a question, I'm going to start talking about sports. Or no, I'm just kidding. Any sports fans out there? Like, do I have any like football or hockey or track and field fans? Like, I know Airman Torres is Houston Texans and probably Houston Astros. Bucks. Yeah. He loves the Bucks before or after Tom Brady. Good, before. Okay, so he's not jumping on the Brady bandwagon. Okay, so Patrick Taylor, you're free to go because you said go Pats. That's cool. All right, I gotta say I'm Baltimore. If you guys haven't picked up on that by now, hockey. My wife is from Tennessee, so she's a Predators fan. So we're both massive Nashville Predators fans. Orioles, even though I think they forgot how to play baseball since the '90s. And then basketball, yeah, Wizards. Yeah, they really don't, the Wizards really don't have any magic anymore, pun intended. So South Korean Pro Baseball League is on ESPN, 6 to 8:30. All right, sweet. Yeah, oh my gosh, those are some really good baseball players over there. Shoot. Yeah, they usually manhandle us. Sure, any track and field? Like, no. Okay.
You keep track of like track and field like that?
Yeah, no runners or anything like that. Even any running for. I mean, I know it's tough now, you know, with staying in your house and all. Like, any Air Force marathon guys, 5K runners? No, just like running in general. I'm just filling the time because it doesn't look like anybody's asking questions.
I think you did a good enough job. I think you killed it.
Oh, I do have something. I do have a question from Fuji. Do you have something about how to conduct record reviews for senior NCO boards? So for senior NCO boards, are we talking like promotion boards? I think we might be talking about promo boards and stuff like that. I don't personally have anything typed up for that. That's a good idea. That's something I can put in my guide. That's good. There is some guidance on that I put in my guide on the EPRs. Like, so one of the things I do have in that guide is kind of like the timeline, suspense, and limit chapter, which is like, so in the AFI, there's like all these ungodly like suspenses, like, oh, you gotta have, like, for example, the senior rater has to have the oh gosh, I'm mind blanking, the PRF's done 45 days before the central selection board. And then he has to have this done this many days behind, and the OPR needs to close out this many. So the guy does have like timelines and suspenses and like these cool little infographics and everything. But so there's that, if that's what you're looking for. But as far as conducting them, it's pretty much the style of the wing that I've seen from my experience. So, but as far as senior NCO boards, you know, you have your, oh shoot, no, not DPs and Ps, because that only goes off the tech. But, you know, I haven't ever really been on a senior NCO promo board, so I can't speak on it, unfortunately. But as far as the bullet writing context, you know, it's safe to say senior NCOs usually reside at the flight level or higher. Especially senior NCOs should be squadron higher level. usually. So I would say they should pretty much have the same aspirational bullet writing, the same aspirations to have their bullets kind of equivalent to their officers, like at least wing level or above, or, shooting for those high level bullets that are impacting more than just your squadrons. That's the best I can say on that. Yep. Go. Hey, Bears. I respect the Bears. Urlacher was a beast, and now I think you still have Khalil Mack. I don't really keep in touch with the NFC too much, more AFC, because got to beat all them to get to the Super Bowl. All right. I was like, oh shoot, 200-meter hurdles in high school, and I do like to run 5K. All right, nice, sweet. Okay, fellow hurdler, see my sign, great. I like that. Oh, sorry, Fuji, I just saw that. Like how to review RIPs, EPRs, how to score. Okay, I see what you mean on that. So, basically the only thing I have on that as far as what you just described, Fuji, was pretty much there is a thing in my trapdoor section where anything greater than 2 on that 6 to 10 scale is a split, and they have to stop, and determine who's they have to stop and deliberate on resolving that score, because it can't be greater than 2 if they're going to do a 6 to 10 scale. The other methodology of saying who's going to promote and not promote is literally the senior raider, when he gets together with all the commanders, he'll just have a rack and stack. Those are the 2 methods, is the 6 to 10 scale and the rack and stack. It's like, okay, who's our best all the way down to the worst, and they cut off at however many allocations they have. How to review RIPs and EPRs. I know EPRs is part of that process. They also bring in their SERFs and decorations as well. So I know when you go to any EFTP, they want SERFs, last 3 EPRs, and decorations, and sometimes they'll ask for PT reports. Let's see. If I need to further elaborate, go ahead, Fuji. I'm looking at the next one. How do you tell your EPRs to a special duty that's technically out of your career scope? For example, a comm technician in a maintenance unit. Okay, so trying to get into. So I think that question might be 2 different ways. Either you're asking me, how do you sell your EPR in that you want to cross train, or maybe that your senior raider is not a maintenance guy. So for example, I don't know, your group commander is a maintenance guy, but is a comm guy, but you're in a maintenance squadron. So if you're trying to cross train, really it's kind of hard to cross train to build up a kind of a reputation, if you will, or creds in your EPR, because your EPR is designed to emphasize how well you're doing at your current job. So if I wanted to go be let's say randomly a doctor, and I'm cyber right now, I really shouldn't be putting in my OPR how I'm performing cardiovascular surgery on people, so it shouldn't be EPRs. That should be kind of career broad. So first you want to show that you're really good at your job. So everything I just described in bullet writing, apply that. But if you're trying to cross train, I would recommend taking courses or gaining experience, or taking some kind of certification that proves that you might be able to handle that. We have a lot of there are a lot of 3 deltas that want to, so 3 delta, the common listed, that want to train into 1 Bravo, the more intense version of cyber, if you will. So, and it's kind of hard to do that when you're doing stuff in the comm squadron. So what do you have to do? You take these online courses, you start self-teaching yourself in coding, you get special experience identifiers that show you can handle that career field. So it is a really self-taught process. Now, Cortez, if you're asking how do you sell your EPR, I think he's asking about how to get his maintenance heavy EPR to read well when it goes to a different type of board that applies to the comm squadron. So I think what you're talking about is maybe there are comm people reviewing the EPR. In that case, yeah. So in that case, it's kind of like what I said earlier. You want to avoid that TCP dump or the wait what kind of bullets. So one things that we always do in a cyber world, because especially our comm guys, when I was an exec, they had a little bit of a bad habit of keeping their EPRs and OPRs really comm technical, which reads great for the communication squadron, but when your group commander is a logistics guy for the maintenance support group, it doesn't really translate well. So what you want to focus more on is, really diluted language. And I'm not a maintenance guy, so I can't really say, what that would look like for you. But when you look at your bullets, kind of try to answer the question of, can somebody outside my career field read this and understand it? So you got to compete at a very agnostic level. So avoid those wait, what, and focus on big picture. And, so for example, a big one that my squadron does when they mention exercise Black Demon. Nobody knows what exercise Black Demon is. I know that it is essentially this defensive cyber exercise where they go and, a offensive team tries to get into the network and they try to protect it. And it can really be Air Force wide. Sometimes our joint guys get in it, stuff like that. But, instead of saying, exercise Black Demon in support of a defensive or a Air Force wide defensive cyber exercise, or abbreviated so you kind of get that picture. You know what I mean? So it's diluted so everybody can understand, okay, it's Air Force wide. We're talking about how well you can defend cyber. So you got the scope and you got the purpose of it in, normal person's terms, if that makes sense. So unfortunately, I don't know too much about maintenance. I have a really good friend that's a maintenance officer. But that was when we were both in ROTC instructors and we didn't really talk about our own career fields as much because we just didn't. We just talked about our own current job. But that would be my advice is dilution of terms and also focus on scope, especially when you're dealing with someone that doesn't know your line of work. If you can present their strong data and a strong impact, that should be enough weapons at your disposal, so to speak, to at least compensate for maybe an understanding barrier from what people do. Because, not everybody knows all the terms and acronyms in the Air Force, and nobody likes flipping to the acronym page either when they're trying to read. So, the more the plain English, the higher the impact, and the higher the data level, the better, really. If there are any other questions. Towards the end, you mentioned senior NCOs need to have their associates. Our education, well, I lost track of it. There it is. Bullets, really just level 1 for senior NCOs. So I think so what I'm getting at is that if you want a stratification by your senior rater, you need to have at least an associates, and that's reflected on your cert. So education bullets, yeah, they kind of are level 1. I mean, we're talking about quarterly awards. It's great because you have that significant self-improvement. And it's true. I mean, unless you can say maybe it's the only degree in your squadron, or you got your degree program done 50% faster than what it should be. Some people fly through the degree programs. Yeah, it is level 1, but what I was really getting to is senior NCOs out there, you need at least an associates to get a stratification by your senior rater out there. Cortez. So I guess the problem is we have context in it. Oh, that's what you mean. In a maintenance unit, but our group commander is a maintainer. So the problem for a lot of our context, we don't know who to write to. So there's context sounds like they are raters in a maintenance unit. That is a fantastic situation to be in. I'm only semi-sarcastic. So I guess with that issue, I mean, it does help you kind of already practice dilution of terms. I don't know what level those contexts are at, really. If they are supervisors over maintenance troops, I'm not going to say anything about the structural integrity of the squadron, but generally, if you're going to supervise someone at a job, you should know that job. So if things are working right in your squadron, those contexts should know your job. But you're asking this question, so I think I already know the response to what I just proposed. So in that case, if assuming you can't change your rater, assuming your rater doesn't really understand what you do, outside of bullet writing, I would kind of, I don't know if you already talked to your rater or if you have guys that have already brought up that problem, be like, hey, you know, as my rater, you need to know what I'm doing. And if you don't know my job, you really shouldn't be rating me. And it's actually in the responsibility section in the AFI. And you know, they're supposed to be writing your evaluation in a perfect world. So if they don't know what you're doing, they can't write your evaluation. Now, if nothing really still can be changed, the one thing that I would advise is kind of go to the rater or the first shirt or something like that and kind of address it. I got distracted. Mike Vetri 18 at Gmail. Yes, that's it, Xavier. So back to Cortez. I would go to either the rater or the shirt and explain the problem, because that is a serious problem, and that has major career implications for your evaluation. You know, I would never ask like anybody to be rated by someone that doesn't know what their job is. But if you're in the meantime, yeah, I would have to do my best to dilute the language a little bit, and stuff like that. Now, what you could do, it's a little bit of a loophole, is, let's be real, unfortunately, we still have this issue where people are writing their own evaluations. There's the raters block, there's the additional raters block. Maybe dilute the raters block, and you can maybe afford a little bit more technical details in the rater or additional rater. Now, I wouldn't go too technical, because you know, you never know what your next unit's going to be, or you're get reassigned. They always look at your last 3 EPRs for promotion. So when they're looking at those, if you get too detailed and you get a senior rater that isn't, you know, tech savvy knowledge like what you have, that could kind of hurt. But what I'm saying is, you can afford to go a little bit more detailed in the additional raters block for the ones that are not those contexts. I don't know if Cortez, that helps. Group commander is a maintainer. Wow, we have context in the maintenance unit. Whew. If we have any other questions out there, I'll hang on until I got at least about a minute straight of no questions. And I got both of these up. So anybody who's listening, I don't have Facebook up. I just have the Zoom Q&A. Okay, I think I'm close enough to a minute. So everybody have a fantastic week. Thank you all for coming. And I'll see y'all around on the Big Blue. Appreciate you. Aaron Torres, you're awesome. Thanks a ton, Aaron Torres. Shout out to him. He made it. He made this all happen. All right, cool. Well, I appreciate you guys. I'm officially signing out now to everyone. So y'all got my email. It's in there. If not, then just join those Facebook pages. You'll see my posts floating around. You'll catch it. I'm also in the GAL. I'm the only Vetri, V-E-T-R-I, in the GAL. So there's your last resort. Cool. All right. Sweet. All right, Emma.